Hey guys, it's your girl Jade. I am sitting outside. You're probably gonna hear the thunder sometime soon because it looks like it's about to storm. So, hey. Hold on. So, yeah. This video. I was going to do a story time. When I gave birth to my child. The original due date that I had was, when was it? It was like June 11th. And then, they were saying that I was measuring further along than I was. And then, I actually had to go to a specialist because at like 34 weeks I was measuring 40. Now what they do is they take a tape measure and basically, it's like a sewing kit tape measure, almost. But they go from, like, right below your stomach, where it ends, like, right before your pubic hair. And then they go up to where the pregnant belly ends, like right at your ribs, or somewhere around there, right under your chest, or boobs, whatever. And, I was measuring, like, 40 weeks at, like, 34 weeks. So I had to go to a specialist because they're like, okay, you're measuring this far along, and you're only this far along, and there's a chance that, that the baby is a lot bigger than we thought. So I had to go to a specialist, sorry. Basically, it was just an ultrasound specialist, which I don't know why they couldn't have done it, because they had an ultrasound machine in my gynecologist office. So I went to the specialist, got more pictures and everything, and they couldn't get an accurate scan, from my stomach because of how high my kid was sitting. So they did one of the vaginal ultrasounds. That was very uncomfortable. So they found out that I was in fact like 34 weeks, like 35 instead of like 34, and that the due date was now June 2nd, around that time, June 1st, June 2nd, instead of June 11th to the 15th. So, and they found out, like, that my kid was, like, they were saying that by the time I hit 40 weeks, I would have, like, a 8 or 9 pound baby. So, I was like, okay, whatever. Sorry, car just went by. So, and of course they asked me if I wanted to do, like, the 3D ultrasound, which my insurance didn't cover it, so, and I just didn't have the money for it, because by that point, the third trimester, I had, like, really bad morning sickness, and I couldn't work, and the only really working stuff that I know that would hire me would be food, or in a grocery store, and I couldn't lift anything over a certain weight. And then just the smell of food and just seeing it made me sick. Like, I lived off of saltines and ginger ale the last 3 months of being pregnant. Now, the first 3 months, like, usually that's when, like, all the morning sickness hits. It didn't. I actually lost, like, 50 pounds because I was, like, so hungry, and I was eating more, because, yes, I know I'm fat, and it's because I've shot my metabolism because I don't eat. So anything I do eat, my body stores, because that's how I've been for years. And yeah, and whenever I actually do pick up eating, I end up losing the weight because I've like boosted my metabolism and everything. So I'm working on that. But anyway, so I get back, or the results get sent to my gynecologist, and they're like, okay, now we know where you're at, and you're now going to be coming in every week so we can check you and see how you're progressing and everything. So I went in, and I went in the following week. I was not dilated, nothing. And the week after that, I was, they give you from 0 to 10. And I was at a 3. I forget what it's called. But, I was at a 3. And I stayed this way. No, wait. No, I went in after the ultrasound, the specialist ultrasound. I was a face, 3, at a 3. Then the next week I was still at a 3, and my kid's father was missing work so that I can make these appointments. And we're like, okay, we're done with this. I'm going to go ahead and go get induced. So, they set up the appointment for May 26th, 2005. And I was like, okay. They told me I could not eat anything after midnight. I couldn't drink anything. So I was up at 4 o'clock to get ready, get everything together. Sorry, moving around. And to get to the hospital by 5:30, because then that would leave me an hour and a half to get all the paperwork filled out so that they could start getting me hooked up to IVs and everything to induce me. So I'd already let my mom and my sister know, so they knew what time everything was going to start, so they had plans to make it up there to see me. So I get in there, and of course they hook me up to IV, they induce me, and the contractions start. And they hurt. They also hooked me up to Pitocin to speed it along even more. And what I felt was like my ovaries were being just ripped out of my body, but it was only showing that out of 100 I was only at a 30 or a 40. And most apparently normal labor normal labor pains are at 70, 80 to 100. But I was like, no, this just feels like my ovaries are being torn out. This hurts. So I finally get dilated to a 10. I'm fully effaced. And they're like, okay, now we just have to wait for the baby to drop. Okay, so now I am 100, fully effaced. I'm at a 10. Now I gotta wait for this kid to drop? I thought this was what breaking the water was for. And then they just, so from 6 o'clock to maybe 7 o'clock 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. That's 11 hours that I'm dealing with this. Then they decide that they have to do a C-section on me, because the baby was not dropping. Heart rate was okay and everything. I was okay. But they just decided, let's do a C-section. So I was like, okay, it scared the shit out of me, but I wanted all this to stop. I wanted this kid out of me. So, they of course have me fill out the paperwork. And for those people who do know me, they know I am terrified of needles. My fight or flight reflex kicks in when a needle comes near me. And it never registered in my mind that I would have to do an epidural for this. So, of course, they have nurses on either side of me. My kid's father in front of me, and I've got a pillow clutched to my chest that I'm supposed to bend over and basically just try and separate my spine. So they bring in the needle. They make sure I don't see it, because I'd already told them that needles freak me out and I will hit somebody, because it has happened. Anytime they had to do a blood draw, I would have to have someone sitting on my lap and 2 people holding my arms down because I do swing. So, of course, they get the epidural in, and this was back when they would actually just pump you straight full of epidural. You didn't have a button that you could press whenever you were starting to feel pain again, or an automatic drip. So they put like 2 syringefuls in me, and they're like, okay, wiggle your toes. So I'm wiggling my feet, like, okay, thinking I should be able to do this anyway, not a problem. So they inject me again with 2 more, and they're like, okay, wiggle your toes, and I could still wiggle my feet. They give me 2 more a few minutes later, and they're like, okay, you should not be able to feel anything. You should not be able to move. We cannot give you any more because we will kill you if we do. And I could still move my feet. So, they get me on the operating table. They put the blue screen up, and then they asked me who I wanted in the room with me. My kid's father wanted to be in the room, which I was like, okay, I wish they would have let me have 2 people because I really wanted my mom there. I didn't choose her because I didn't know how she would handle that, because that was my mom. I didn't know how if she would like freak out or anything. And I'm gonna just call him the ex. I'm calling my ex because that's what he is. My ex was already freaking out because he had a dream that I was going to die on that operating table. So I was like, okay, I can keep him from freaking out and have him in there. And I can also keep my mom from freaking out by not having her see this. Because my mom had all night, like, she pushed every one of her kids out. So they get him in there. And normally it's like, I think it takes 15 minutes to get the kid out. I was in there for like an hour and a half because they, of course, cut me open. I could feel everything. Like, I could feel like all the pressure, not them cutting or anything. And the whole time during this procedure, I was wiggling my feet. Like, I had a song in my head, and I was just wiggling my feet to the tune of the song just to keep myself from freaking out. Because I had never had surgery, and yeah, so I wasn't really bouncing around, so I didn't affect anybody doing that, but I kept myself calm. And plus, they also had my arms kind of strapped down so I wouldn't move. So I was just laid out on this table like I was on a fucking cross, basically. And then next thing I hear is, like, I hear the suction going, and then I hear a pop, and I see chunks of meat hit this blue curtain, or blanket that they have blocking my view from what's going on. That freaked me out, because you never want to see, sorry, the rain's gonna get really hard here, you never want to see, like, chunks of yourself hitting this blue curtain, and you're like, oh god, oh god. And come to find out, they had broke one of the vacuum hoses, and they had on trying to get my kid out, and apparently kid's head got stuck under my pelvic bone, and that's why I couldn't push. So they finally get me sewed up and everything, and I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna throw up, because they give you this, like, radioactive green antacid stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna throw it up, and the anesthesiologist is like, what? I was like, I'm going to throw up now. And before he could even really get the bucket over there, I threw up all this radioactive green antacid, like, all over the place. So, and come to find out, my kid was not like the 8 or 9 pounds, well, close enough to 8, but 7 pounds, 14 ounces, and like 22.5 inches long. So, yeah. So I ended up staying in the hospital for Memorial Day weekend, in a room where the AC did not work, and I found out morphine has no effect on me, because that's what they gave me after I had my C-section, was a morphine drip. And the first day I didn't need it because I was still doped up from the 6 syringefuls of epidural I had. But on day 2, after 7 o'clock at night, I could feel everything. and I tried using the morphine pump, and nothing. And then they would bring, of course, ibuprofen and Percocets in, and I took those because I knew ibuprofen would work on me. But morphine had no effect whatsoever. Let's see, that was like, what? Let's see, day 1, or the first day was the day I was there. Day 1 of the hospital day was the second day. So technically I was in the hospital for 4 days, sorry. Day 3, my gynecologist comes in to check everything. And she's like, oh, you haven't used your morphine drip today. Here, click. I'm like, it is not working. Why am I going to use it? So, I mean, she didn't even come in to release me on day 4. Apparently she'd gone out of town on vacation or something. And the hospital staff was like, we don't know where she is. And we're waiting to reach her assistant so that she can release you. So I had to wait until like 8 or 9 o'clock on day 4 to even be released from the hospital because they had to find someone from this office to release me. Which pissed me off. So I was like, okay, you know I'm in here. You know the procedure that you have to check on me and tell me whether or not they can, or tell the doctors whether or not they can release me. Thanks, bitch. And I also called her the vulture woman because anytime she did a pelvic exam on you, you were gonna go home bleeding. So, yeah. That was my fun experience giving birth. So, fun times. Anyway, you can probably hear it because I had to start like talking really loud to be heard over the rain. So that's going to be one of my videos for today. I don't know what else I'm going to do. Right now, I guess I'm going to just sit out here and watch the storm and everything. And then probably do some more crocheting. Because I have been commissioned to make scarves for a couple of people for the winter. So that's one of them. So yeah, I'll probably do that while watching the rain. It got really cool out here, so. Anyway, guys. Bye. Love you. Deuces.